Afternoon, everyone. My name is Rebecca Sun. I'm a senior editor at The Hollywood Reporter, and it is my pleasure to moderate this post-screening panel of Quiz Lady. We've got some really, really special guests today. So I'll just go ahead and introduce them, bring them up. First, we have director Jessica Yu. Next, we have the screenwriter of the film, Jen D'Angelo, with Aggie the Pug. She writes and she wrangles dogs. And also, so that doggy bed is going to be for Aggie and not Awkwafina, who is joining us live from London, where she's busy shooting her next project.
Hey, well that's weird.
I'm sorry you missed the live pug experience. She's very cute.
I know.
Also, she's the only one who gets snacks on this panel, so that is discrimination.
Oh, bummer.
So, let's start at the beginning. Oh, yes, that's gonna happen, but I figured, you know what, we're just gonna keep it loose and, yeah, let Aggie, respect her autonomy. I think that's important. So, and if at any point you guys want to sit on the floor, that's also fine. So let's start at the beginning. I feel like when this project was first announced in the trades, October 2020, it was basically like Awkwafina, Sandra Oh, comedy, playing sisters, produced by Gloria Sanchez. Like, say no more. Like, everybody was super hyped about it. But Jen, I'm going to start with you because you were the genesis of this whole thing. Tell me a little bit about just your inspo and then how the package came together as it was announced.
Yeah, my inspiration, obviously, Aggie. I was just like, she's a star. We need to have pug representation on screen. But yeah, I had this idea for essentially like a buddy comedy, or a rom-com, but the central relationship that you care about is between two sisters instead of a romantic relationship. And then it all sort of came from, my brother is like a Jeopardy whiz. It's very frustrating if you're watching Jeopardy with him. He knows everything. And he's auditioned to be on the show like 100 times, but he's never made it. And when I first moved to LA, I was a PA on a Sony show. So I would drive onto the Sony lot like every day, drive right past the Jeopardy stage, and I was just like, it's right there. Like, if I could just get my brother on Jeopardy, it would make his whole day, his whole life. And so that was just sort of the very simple idea, and I married that with the sister concept. And then Awkwafina was the first person we sent it to, and I was just like, this would be absolutely incredible. And then when she signed on, I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And then we were talking about who could play the sister, and then we sent it to Sandra. And Sandra signed on right away, and then, yeah, I had the same reaction as the internet. I was just like, Sandra and Awkwafina are playing sisters, like, this is absolutely unbelievable. And then when Jessica joined us, the four of us all got together and we sort of did another pass of the script and just really workshopped it, and it was, just all came together that way.
Amazing. First, important side question, does the fact that you created and, made an entire movie helped your brother's odds in terms of getting onto Jeopardy or any other quiz show?
I am a little bit like, why haven't they called? Yes. I feel like, what else can we do? Because he always makes it into the contestant pool, so he just needs the call. So if anybody works for Sony, although I think that's illegal for them to interview.
It's okay, you didn't say his name. It's,
His name is Chris D'Angelo. Rest your job. Get him on the show.
Awkwafina, tell me about, because my understanding is, because this is the first time you and Sandra ever worked together, but you guys had known each other. Tell me a little bit about, your relationship with Sandra prior and why you thought of her to play your sister.
Oh man, I obviously I've been a lifelong fan of Sandra Oh, so just being able to meet her, I met her at some kind of a foundation gala a couple of years ago, and I remember her presence when she walked in. She had such an insane presence, and then I got to meet her and talk to her and realize that she's just super chill, I really wanted to work with her, and I felt like this role was like silly enough for something that I think that she is like an insanely powerful comedic actress. And then I think just being on set with her was really like, she taught me a lot, and she is just a really powerful actress as well. So yeah, it was such a pleasure, and the filming was so fun because of everybody there.
Yeah. Hopefully Sandra's ears are burning. She's currently on stage, like as we're speaking.
Yeah.
So hopefully this hasn't, tripped up a line for her while we're talking about her on the other side of the country. So, the log line of this film, again, when it was announced with the participation of you two, was, a lonely recluse has her life upended when her train wreck of a sister vows to mend their relationship by helping her fulfill her lifelong dream to be a contestant on her favorite game show. And at that time, who was playing what role wasn't specified. And I would say that I think it's probably safe to assume that most people, just because of the the roles that you guys are most famous for, because I think it must be said that both Sandra and Awkwafina's filmographies are pretty diverse, and like Awkwafina has won a Golden Globe for The Farewell, right? So, but I do think that most people, myself included, was like, oh, I can't wait to see Awkwafina, the train wreck of a sister, come and mess up Sandra's life. So tell me about the idea of playing against type. Whose idea was it? Instantly, you guys knew who was going to be playing who, and how the role assignments came about.
I was on a telephone conversation with Sandra, and she was like, well, which one am I going to play? And I'm like, I actually really don't care, whichever one you want. I think that she thought that she was going to play Anne as well, but there was always something really enticing about the idea that she would be Jenny. And she was down for that. Yeah.
And yeah, we love the idea of Jenny being the older sister, because there's something so juicy about this feeling of the older sister is supposed to take care of you, they're supposed to sort of lead the way and you follow in their footsteps, but for a younger sister to feel like the weight was always on them to sort of keep the family together and be the good one. I think that really leads to a lot of resentment. I don't know, I assume. But yeah, so that was just really fun to sort of play with that dynamic of the big sister being the mess and the little sister being the sort of serious one.
I agree, that makes sense. And now, Jessica, I want to bring you in because your involvement was announced a year later. And Jessica, you, Oscar-winning director. Yes. Also, again, somebody who has worked in multiple genres, documentary, narrative, drama, comedy, but tell me about how your involvement came about, because I don't think prior to this you were known for doing this type of comedy, certainly, right?
Yeah, I had worked in comedy a little bit, and I worked with Maria Bamford on Lady Dynamite and did a special. And I love doing it, but it is a particular muscle, right? But I was sent this script, which is incredibly funny, and also, yes, Sandra, Awkwafina. Yeah, I mean, at that point, I was just, pick me. I mean, that was, but actually, I remember Sandra asking me early on, saying, what is it that, you work in a lot of genres, what is it that makes you want to do a comedy right now? And during the pandemic, I remember thinking about how much we leaned on our comfort comedies. And for our family, it's like Little Miss Sunshine, About a Boy. I mean, there's a bunch of them. And I thought, God, my dream is to make a comfort comedy, and to make a comedy where it's very much grounded. Like the best comedies are grounded in something that is emotionally, that's something real. And I love the idea of these Asian American sisters, about this estrangement. I also might have been the only person who didn't think it was at all weird that they were playing, Sandra was playing Jenny. Yeah. And I think, just my sense of these two actors can do anything. But anyway, so that was, I was just all in from the moment I read the script and knew that they were there.
Jen, you alluded earlier that once, these crucial elements were in place, you have these three women now joining you on this project, then, the film kind of went through some, evolutions. All of you guys, talk a little bit about how this final product of the film kind of changed from your original conception on the script.
Well, first, just really fast, I have to say, if you haven't seen Jessica's Oscar acceptance speech, you have to watch it. It's so good. It's very funny. But yeah, the script, it was such a lovely experience. It really felt like theater in the best way, because we got to do this incredible workshop where Jessica and Sandra were both working in London, and they had sort of a similar window of free time. And Awkwafina and I were also free. And so we flew to London and we spent like 4 days where we just hung out every day, read through the scripts, talked about just like, what we wanted to see from this movie, what we wanted to see from these characters, and, just sort of our families and stuff. And so much of that changed. I mean, famously, shit in a hole.
Shit in a hole. I mean,
That's the crucial part.
Yeah, that there's some, personal stories in there. No one needs to take responsibility for shit in a hole, but it is real. You guys should all know that.
Yes.
It's real.
But yeah, the
And
hanging
based
out
on,
time, eating.
Based on reality is, nice. Sorry, I didn't mean to.
You know what, Sandra's not here, so just pin it on her. It's Aggie.
Aggie should.
It was Aggie. Aggie did that.
Dogs are known for this, so. But I think you also alluded to something is, my understanding, Jen, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that it wasn't necessarily specifically an Asian American film, when you were just writing the screenplay, the first draft. And so what about the casting, and Jessica, did you feel like there were any elements that you really wanted to make specific now that you have specific people embodying these roles?
Sure. I mean, I think it was definitely a group effort, and Jen was so open to whatever layers would make this relationship between the sisters incredibly, specific and real and resonant.
Yeah, and this is my very pretentious, capital W writer take, but I always think of crafting characters as sort of like sculpting, where it's like the writer basically gets down like the basic shape of it, and then when you have the director and the actor, like then you go in and you start doing all the fine detail work to really find who this character actually is and how they live, how they breathe, how they walk, and how they think. Like all of that stuff really comes from the actor, and so this was just part of that process, was sort of being like, okay, these are Asian American women, so we want to make sure that they feel like Asian American characters. It's not just, the Asian American actors playing these like very white characters. And that was also really cool. I think it was like a cool moment in the industry to think like, there are these two Asian American actors who put their name on a script and they're like, we want to make this, and that was enough, and that they had enough cachet and to get it made, and then to have it sort of be crafted around them, and that was just really so cool to work on. And then also, just working on in that workshop, talking about our families and our lives and stuff, and you sort of realize that like while the specifics are different, everything is very similar. Like I'm like, oh yeah, you want to talk about shame? I'm from very waspy suburban Philadelphia. Like I know shame. So yeah, it was such a great process.
To your credit also, Jen, you were really, really collaborative on us, I think, with us. And I think that we really wanted, I think it was interesting that we made them half Korean and half Chinese, like I am. And there was something, I think that it exists kind of in this vacuum of itself in terms of their identity as sisters and as Asian American women, where it's very inherent, but then it's not also like talked about. And I think that was something that I can deeply relate to growing up too. But yeah, there was a lot of room, I think, for there to like be like crafted characters, as you said.
I think what was also great, though, is that it does feel like we're at a point where we can sort of subvert the identity politics, and a lot of the my favorite jokes came out of that, right? Seeing Jenny use, references to being Asian American to her own advantage, that just was a real signal to me. I mean, when I was first...
Don't give away that secret, Jessica. I would play the Asian card. No one here has ever done that. What are you talking about?
But okay, so like coming up, I'm like in working on a series or something. If there was an Asian character in the early days, that person would have like, if they stuck around for long enough, they'd have one moment to explain why they were there, and it was always like explaining what it means to be Asian American, and then that was it. You'd never hear from them again. So this was, it was just next level being able to do that.
Yeah, I feel like it really definitely made, especially the sort of complicated dynamic, the family dynamic of the Young family. It just kind of like made everything just another layer, a texture of realism and resonance. I want to bring in Aggie now. And Jen, when you were writing the initial script, were you specifically thinking pug? Or, tell me a little bit about, the development of this critical character.
Critical character, thank you so much.
She drives the plot,
Yeah, she's the MacGuffin. So Aggie is actually my friend's dog. That thing when your lifelong best friends get a dog and you write a movie about it. I've just loved her for so long. She's 12, and every time we go over to our friend's house and we watch a movie, you just have this like breathing, snoring thing next to you, and it's the sweetest thing in the world. So when I was sort of first writing this script and thinking of this character, Anne, she's really lonely. She's sort of turned completely inward. People have let her down, so she's kind of turned away from them. And yeah, it was just sort of like the perfect companion for someone like that is a big old pug. And so Mr. Nguidi was always in from the very beginning, and then his role did expand quite a bit. But yeah, it just felt like that was sort of the perfect companion for her, because she's not a misanthrope like Francine. She very much has a lot of love to give. She just has been let down, and dogs are great for that. If you feel let down by humans.
Aggie knows that you're telling her story.
Yeah.
Look at her, she's just like, no.
You want to say something? I really thought you would snore. I'm so sorry.
Actors have told me in interviews that there's like, I guess, a saying like never act with animals or children, and so, working with, you guys have worked with some really incredible starry-eyed collaborators, including the incredible supporting cast on this movie, but what was it like directing and acting opposite a pug?
Well, I'll say quickly, and then you had the most Crosby time, but the thing about it is pugs are just different. They're so chill, and the main thing was just to keep our pug Crosby, who was amazing. Yeah, keeping him cool. But they just don't need a lot. They're a really relaxing presence. But anyway, you could talk about acting.
How did you find the chemistry?
The chemistry was sick. The chemistry was off the charts. He had a double that would, I guess, come in and relieve him, and she was a significantly younger female pug. We also had like a really horrifying, I don't know if anyone knows, but like if you were to replicate an animal, like a camera copy, they're like these really freaky fake pugs. Anyway, it's like a pillow. It was like a pillow. So that was really interesting. I would say working with pugs way cooler than working with camels.
I believe that. I totally believe that. Also, Awkwafina, for yourself, I feel like Anne, for such a tightly wound character, there's a lot of physicality. I feel like that went into that. And so tell me a little bit about your work sort of developing her, especially like the physical nature of it. And again, you have that great showcase also in the middle when she's, high AF. Tell me all about just, like creating this very specific character.
Well, it's weird because everyone's always like, your physicality on this one's so good, your posture is so bad. And I'm just like, no, that's just my real, I wasn't doing that for yeah, I'll take it, oh, not. But I feel like Anne really tapped into like a kind of an introverted side of me that is very real, and I think that exists in all of us. People that don't really want to, you want to be invisible only because you don't want to do all that, So it really was like a fun, real character of mine. Like I felt like I was definitely like playing myself a little bit, posture and all,
I want to ask for all of you guys, how did you find the balance for the tone of the movie? What you wanted, because it is uproarious, but also there's a lot of heart. The shit in the whole thing turns out to be a very emotional story. How did you guys pull that off?
You know what was crazy? So that scene on the roof, right, where they say that they love each other and everything, that was on our first day. So we had to shoot in LA first, so all of the game show stuff, and then that scene was on the first day, and we were trying not to do that on the first day, and then we realized we just had to. And then, of course, afterwards you rationalize, oh, it was great we did that on the first day, because then we know where we're going, right? But I think it was really true. You know, there was such a, you know, I just remember when we shot it, I was just getting chills, because I felt it so strongly. I thought, you know, that was the most important thing, I think, in this one. Like, I knew that the funny stuff was going to be funny, and it was just modulating so that we could make that land and not have it feel like a different movie.
Yeah, I know the tone it's so interesting because you sort of are finding it the entire time. Like there were a couple of jokes that were in the script that, you know, when we see the cut, it's just sort of like, oh, maybe that's just a little too silly or something, or it's, you know, it's undercutting the emotion in a bad way as opposed to a good way. And so yeah, it was just sort of always fine-tuning these dials. But I mean, it was very easy when you have these like incredible actors who are bringing real pathos to their characters and making them feel so grounded, because then, you know, you're sort of just crafting everything around them and they make everything feel so real. And so, I mean, we were just so incredibly lucky to have the cast that we had. It was incredible.
I think that's absolutely right. Like, they always played the stakes absolutely real, and like the shit in the hole was like the most shameful secret. And so that became kind of like the touchstone, I think, because again, it's, you know, what I was kept on thinking is that if the stakes are real for the characters and we are invested in them, then you can get away with sillier stuff. Like, you know, like the floppy hand scene, that scene to me kind of epitomizes like the art of the whole film in a way, right? That you start with something that's kind of outrageous and you get to something that's more real than you thought you would reach. So yeah, that's one of my favorites, but maybe Nora, I mean, maybe Awkwafina has something.
I love how it just keeps going back to the keeps going back to the shit in the hall. I love that. What was the question?
Oh no, it's just about finding the tone. You know what I mean? Like,
The
how
question
to
was
balance,
who's in the hole?
Yeah, like a very broad and extreme character with this emotional, like real relatability.
Yeah, you know, the tone was something that I too was a little bit curious about what that was gonna be. But I think that, you know, working with Jessica, and we're already working with such a funny script written by Jen, it's like we were really encouraged to be real, and I appreciate Jessica saying that like the stakes felt real, because it did. And so I think that the tone becomes like an accident. I don't know, unless it was like on purpose, Jessica.
Totally calculated every single second.
Yeah.
What for each of you guys? What was the most fun scene or element, you know, of the film for each of you guys?
I mean, I truly, the day that we were shooting the Choo-Chees tag with the fajitas, I genuinely got emotional, because all the stuff at the end, like all of the end credits, that was just something, when I was writing this spec, I was just like, I'm, you know, balls to the wall, just like anything that makes me laugh goes in the script, because I'm just sort of writing this to be fun. And so I put in all those end credits. I was certain at some point someone would tell me to take them out. And then the fajitas one in particular, I was like, this is so random, and it's very silly, and it's, you know, for Ken and his gang, you know, it's not even one of our like main characters, as incredible as Dom is in that role. But in that, just sitting in the Choo-Chees set and just being like, so many people worked so hard to bring this to life, and the Choo-Chees logo, designed by Jessica Yu, is absolutely incredible. I highly recommend going and watching and pausing. It's a train made out of peppers. It's very funny. And like Jeff Mann, our production designer, and his team, like they just made really funny menus. Like there's really funny jokes on the menus that no one will ever see. It's like best fries, like #1 best fries for 2018 or something random. And that just like, that moment just encapsulated everything of just like, oh my God, this thing went from being just this file on my computer to being this thing that represents like so much creativity and love and passion and hard work, and everyone's just sweating in New Orleans bringing this thing to life. And it was just, yeah, so special. Just that little Chi-Chi's fajitas tag.
What about you guys? Do you have one, Awkwafina?
My favorite moment from
Yeah.
filming? I really just enjoyed being in New Orleans with you guys. It felt like a real family. I really enjoyed, like, you know, the Ben Franklin Inn and everything. I'll always remember that time as the experience of filming it was so special for me. So, yeah.
Yeah, I know. I loved every scene where it was also just the dynamic between the two sisters and that sort of 2 steps forward, 1.5 steps back. And there was the scene in the bed where Sandra just kept waving her foot in your face and everything.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there's some
Yeah, I know.
outtakes that you can see. It goes on. We must have done that for 20 minutes, but again, just when you see that art and life overlapping in a really real and funny way, I would just sit there and just watch. Yeah.
I can see how even like with the example of the Chi-Chi's is that it's not just the level of care, but like how much fun everybody involved in it, from props to like genuinely just to entertain yourself, right? I love that. I think it would be remiss if I did not mention this. You know, Quiz Lady will always have the distinction of being Paul Rubenson's final film. Tell me a little bit about how you got his cameo. My understanding is that he wasn't necessarily written into your original script, but how did you think of it and get him involved?
Yeah.
What was it like having him?
I mean, it was incredible. He obviously was such, he was so kind and so funny, and we didn't really put this together at the time, I don't think, but like to have this movie that is about the comfort that TV can bring to people and sort of how it can be this constant and this source of warm joy in people's lives, to have that be the movie and then also have Pee-wee in it just really felt so special and so perfect. And yeah, originally Francine's crush was Ray Donovan. She was obsessed with Liev Schreiber, and we couldn't get him. I'll just be honest. He was busy. But yeah, so then we were like, oh, who's going to be Francine's crush? And yeah, we were just sort of talking about ideas, and we came up with this idea that her crush is wrong, that she loves this person, but she's just completely wrong and refuses to admit that she got it wrong. And so Paul Rubens and Alan Cumming have sort of always been the touchstone of these two people that really seem identical to me. I really could never get it through my head that Pee Wee Herman was not Nightcrawler. Yeah, so it was just, it sort of came together perfectly, and then we sent it to him, and he was so gracious and willing to come play, and he emailed Alan to make sure that it was okay with Alan, and Alan gave him his blessing. So yeah, he was just so great. We're so lucky.
He was also on our first day, so it felt like a blessing from the comedy gods, you know, that he came in and just everybody. That's the other thing too, is just the whole crew are fantastic crew, by the way. Like everyone's faces lit up. They were like, oh, Pee-wee's here, and that just felt so good. Yeah, he was wonderful.
Just the way you guys used it, it was so sweet, and it was just the most beautiful and surprising, like totally surprising way to kind of kiss the film. Thank you guys so much for your time, for being here. Awkwafina, thank you so much for zooming in from London at night. I don't know if you can see the crowd, but it's a very full house.
I can't hear them, so it's a bit of a bizarre interview.
Thank you all again. There's a reception afterwards. I hope you stay and enjoy.